Great big spicy hello. This is Diana Price, and you're listening to Spicy Business Talk Radio. I was waiting for the da-doom, 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 da-doom. What happened to that? So, today is Tuesday, and it's Spicy Business Talk Tuesday. And it is such a pleasure to be here today. It is so hot. It's so hot. It's really, really, really hot in Southern California, but we love it that way. You know, just water, don't forget to come rain every now and then because we need you, we need you. But today, it's a pleasure to have my friend Walt Grassl in the studio with us. Before you get to meet him, I got to tell you all about him. I have to tell you all about him. So, first of all, you know we're here every Tuesday from 12 noon to 1 o'clock Pacific time on rmconair.com. And you also know that we give you the ingredients for business success. And it doesn't matter what kind of business you're in. It matters that you understand and you get the nuggets that you really need to continue to grow your business and grow your life. So today I want you to go over to the blog post, as I often ask you to do, at dpriceassociates.com. So the blog post is dpriceassociates.com. And I want you to I'm having too much fun today because I'm sending signals to my sound engineer when I do stuff like that. But it's all fun. But the blog post, if you didn't see it, it's all about what we're going to talk about today, about this awesome guy that's in the studio, about how you just have to ask for forgiveness. Just do what you have to do. Forget asking it. Do it. Don't ask. So we're going to talk about that today. And the blog post is it's going to help you answer some of those questions when you decide to trespass. And you know, if you really step in it, you know, what are you going to do to get out of it? So let me take a minute and tell you about my friend Walt. Walt's. I have to remember what we were talking the other day. We were like, where did we first meet? I think we first met at an educational session, and I believe it was it was one of them. Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. But let me tell you about Walt right now. He's a leadership speaker. He's an author. He's a performer. And he's a radio show host. So it's so cool to have a colleague that understands what this business is all about here in the seat with me today. Walt has over 30 years of leadership experience with the Fortune 500 company. We have so much in common. He speaks and writes on leadership. Leadership. And Walt is on a mission to help people overcome stage fright. I just love that about Walt. At the age of 50, Walt chose to face his own fear of public speaking. I can't believe this guy had a fear of public speaking. And he said it was not easy. So he joined Toastmasters, but that alone didn't cure him. So he was determined to conquer his fear. He attended speaking boot camps. That's probably where I met him. He completed Toastmasters. He won contests. He studied improv. I was asking about improv. Can you stand it? He went to the Hollywood Improv, and he did improv stand-up comedy. How cool is that? So he also did the Flamingo in Las Vegas, and he's performed improv and sketch comedy shows at prestigious places like the Groundling School in Hollywood. So he hosts his own internet radio show, Stand Up and Speak, and he's the author of this great book, which I want to share with you today. It's called Stand Up, Speak Up. Stand Up, Speak Up. So I want to give a huge welcome to my friend and my guest, Walt Grassl.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, so Walt, you know, we've been kind of going around and round about, you know, we were actually doing the show before the show came on, but tell us a little bit about you before we get into the nuts and bolts.
Well, like you mentioned, I worked for a Fortune 500 company. I started there when I was 17, and I worked my way up from a technician and to a senior engineering manager in spite of having severe stage fright. When I was in meetings, I would either keep my mouth shut or I would start to talk and I sounded like the dumbest guy in the world. And it was very painful, and I refused to do something about it. A friend of mine gave me some advice and said, oh, you ought to come try Toastmasters. This was like about 15 years before I did it. And he said, well, we go and we practice speeches. And I go, okay, maybe I can do that. And then he says, and then we do this thing where we go around the room and everybody talks for 1 minute about something they're not prepared to talk about. And I said, okay, thank you very much. And I didn't even think about it. But we went through some downsizing. And as a department manager, I had to speak to those that weren't being laid off. And it was so difficult for me. And I had to refer to the notes that HR gave us. And my boss pulled me aside and said, look, you should have just spoken from the heart. And if you left something out. But one of the problems with stage fright is your mind goes blank. So I could not communicate that without reading it. And so I finally decided at the age of 50 to take action. And I joined Toastmasters, but I only spoke 6 times in a year and a half.
6 times?
Yeah, you're supposed to speak like, you get a chance to speak almost every week.
So why did you only speak?
Because I was still afraid, and I wanted to be perfect. But I still would go to Toastmaster contests, and I finally decided to buy some training materials, thinking if I got smarter, it would be easier. And then I went to some events, and it was in February of 2008 at an event in Las Vegas where I went to a series of these trainings, one on storytelling, one on humor. And I was asking for, how do you get over stage fright? And these people had different reasons, but none of them resonated. But what I realized talking to professional speakers, they're not dripping charisma for the most part. They're just normal people like you and I. And yet they get up there and they do it. And I was told in the humor boot camp, well, go try doing stand-up comedy. That will, if you know, all you need to do is get a few laughs. That'll make you comfortable. I go, really? I don't think so. But I got an ad for a stand-up comedy course, and I went and I took it. I did 5 minutes at the Hollywood Improv, and before I went on stage, I was never more afraid. My hands were shaking, my legs were shaking, and I was right in the middle. So, you know, of like 50 people going up and doing 5 minutes. And by the time I got down there, the audience had already seen about 20 people, and they were well into the 2-drink minimum. And I got up there, and I started doing my set, and I was so afraid. And you can actually see that on my YouTube channel.
That you were afraid, or that you were
Well,
you
I put the
there?
whole 5 minutes
up
there.
Cool.
And in the middle of my set, I forgot what the next joke was. And I'm like, and...
what did you do? How did you
I had my
respond?
set card in my pocket, and the guy before me his mind had gone blank too, and maybe that planted a seed in my head. So I looked at the card, and then I put it back in my pocket and forgot what I just read. So I had to pull it out again, and they laughed. They thought I did it on purpose. and then I got through the set, and you know, I got laughs, you know, about half the time. It was a good set for a first time.
I love it.
And I have bad knees, and the green room was on the 2nd floor, and as I went up the stairs, I almost flew, bad knees and all. I was on such a high. I was never more afraid before I started, but I never felt so good afterwards. And from that point on, I said, I can do this.
High five to you.
Thank you. So it was an amazing experience.
That's so
and
awesome.
I've taken improv, and then I had an opportunity to do some sketch comedy shows, and I'd never done any acting, and I just said yes and go for it. That's one of my things.
You said at 50 that you decided to do something about it. 50, I mean, you told me you retired at 55. Why 50?
Well, I mean...
You just decided, time for me to do something else.
Well, I was going to retire at 55 anyway. Being at the same company for 37 years, that's a long time.
Tell me about it. I told you we had a lot in common, but I'm not going to tell any more.
So you can relate,
yeah,
right?
I can relate.
Before that, I mean, before I went on this journey, I figure, okay, when I turn 55, I'll get up in the morning, I'll go play a round of golf, in the morning, go to the gym in the afternoon, do some volunteer work.
So you had a different path planned out.
Yeah, you know, I like to tell people that this getting over my fear of public speaking ruined my retirement. I was just going to sit around in my underwear and watch TV all day, and that's been ruined. I don't know.
That's been completely ruined.
Yeah, I'm crushed.
But guess what? You sound like you're happier, and all things are just the way you want them now.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it any other way. I'm choosing to do what I want to do.
Yeah.
I balance my health, my relationship, my speaking, my writing, all that. And if it ever gets too much, I don't have a boss saying, hey, you can't
Yeah.
stop that. You got to have it done by Friday.
That's
or
right. That's right.
I'm in control of my
Yeah.
destiny.
So you've taken a whole new career path. There's a lot of things that have happened since you decided to polish up your speaking or get rid of the fear of speaking. What else have you done since then?
Oh, I mean, I've written a lot of
books,
magazine
these
I've done the book,
articles.
and
Yeah.
and in fact in the book I call it I'm Walt 2.0. I
Walt
like how they do software
Yes,
upgrades.
yeah.
I did a Walt upgrade. Walt
I like that.
Walt 1.0 had stage fright, was
Walt
afraid. He
2.0.
worked his way up. He was a reluctant leader, but people looked
Yeah.
to me for leadership, and I
There you
studied
go.
leadership. And as 2.0, I'm now able to get in front and share
Yes.
what I've
There
learned
you
with
go.
other people, and
That's
I found
important.
it resonates. I didn't think it would until I really understood speaking and sharing your story.
Mm-hmm.
I go, who wants to hear my story? But people haven't heard our unique stories,
They haven't.
and they actually empower them. And I like to say, when I did improv for the first time, I was taking these classes, and I took the beginning improv class over and over with the same group of people.
Oh.
And I said, you know what? This coming year, after about a year, I'm going to take the intermediate. And everybody's like,
Did you?
whoa.
Wow.
And I did it. And then people, because I was taking them simultaneously, then instead of just taking the beginner, I took the beginner and the intermediate at the same time.
Stop
And the people in the
it.
beginning said, you're doing intermediate too? And it's like, yeah. It's like, well, I'm going to do it. And there's this thing, it's like, well, if Walt can do it, I can do it.
Absolutely.
But-
Absolutely.
And I used to take that, in the beginning, I took that as an insult. It's like, what, if Walt can do it, I can do it? But then I realized that's actually inspirational,
Yeah,
because
it is.
if they
It means that you have come from a whole, you really brought yourself up through the
Yep.
bootstraps. And they say, if I can see the success that he's got in his life, I can do it too. That was a real compliment.
Thank you. And I only wish that I had video of me struggling to give a normal, simple thing so I could put it up there, because people don't believe it when they see you at the end of your destination or well
I
along
know.
your growth path. They think you were there. Like they think
Right.
if you take up an instrument and you learn how to
Right.
play the guitar and you become very accomplished, people will think,
Right.
oh, he's always been a great guitar player, instead of, hey, that person couldn't do anything, and then he put in hundreds, thousands of hours to get better at a skill. They look
Exactly.
at it and say, well, I could never do that. And you can do pretty much anything you want
You
if you
can.
put in the time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, I know that we were talking and you have now he's like this best, most influential speaker. He's got articles all across the nation. I'm like, you go, Walt. So articles, tell us about the articles you've been reading, especially the one on forgiveness. I like this.
That article is my 11th article, and I've had the 10 previous articles published in many different magazines. So I've been in over 70 different magazines.
70 different magazines.
Yeah, the same articles,
A
sometimes
guy
in multiple.
that was afraid to speak
Yep.
has been in 70 different articles.
Yep. Thank you.
Congratulations.
And I've done over 100 radio shows, and that is something. If you'd have told me when I was 49 that I would be even
Wow.
hosting one radio show,
Wow.
I would have called security and had you locked up. I say, there's a
This
psycho in
person
my
out
office.
of
Get him
my
out
sight.
of here. Exactly. But the article that I wrote, which really you told me you really liked, was about
Yeah.
asking for forgiveness instead
Uh-huh.
of permission. And
That's right.
I mean, we can explore it now or a little bit
We
later.
can.
But
We're going to explore it right after we take this break. We're going
Awesome.
to take a quick break, and we will be right back with Walt Grassl, and we're going to talk about how we can just do it and we don't have to ask about it. Stay with us. You're listening to Diana's Spicy Business Talk Radio. We'll be right back.
incredible experience being on her radio show. She just has the greatest radio show persona and voice, and just asks the most insightful questions, keeps things really moving. And so this is another opportunity if you wanted to work with her on her radio show or on getting on to radio in general. Definitely contact Diana.
This is Diana Price, and you're listening to Diana's Spicy Business Talk Radio. And today our topic is Do It, Don't Ask, which is why should you ask for permission all the time? Wouldn't it be better to just ask for forgiveness? And so Walt, my guest Walt Grassl, is the authority on this topic. He's got an article out, and so we're going to kind of delve into, we both have a corporate background, and when you think about asking for permission or asking for forgiveness, you know, many companies that you work for, they have this chain of command. This chain of command is, you know, the authority kind of thing, and you really want to stay within that chain of command if you want to keep your job. You know, you can't just go off saying, I'm going to implement this marketing strategy and do it without telling anybody. But, you know, we're going to talk about some of the ways that you can do some of those things and get away with it. So welcome back, Walt, and thanks again for being here today.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. So, you know, I want you to, well, the article that I wrote about you, about the leadership part, you know, it kind of talks about, you know, the chain of command, and when you do step over your boundaries without asking for permission, you know, I called it kind of trespassing. So tell me how your article, you know, flows with the forgiveness versus the permission. What are you getting at?
Okay. Early on in my career, I was fortunate to have an experience where I was a junior engineer and I was talking with 3 or 4 kind of late on a Friday afternoon. You know, the week's winding down, and we were kind of talking in the lab. And a gentleman from transportation came in with this big box. And he goes, I need somebody to sign for this. And our supervisor wasn't there. So my 3 more senior colleagues, you know, I was looking for one of them to just sign for it. And they go, oh, I'm not going to sign for it. Dominic normally signs for it. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, you know, what's going on here? So I asked the guy, does the supervisor have to sign for it? He says, no, just somebody has to sign for it to show that I delivered it to the lab. And I go, well, why don't one of you guys want to sign for it? And they go, oh, it's not my job. I don't want to be responsible for that box. Like somebody's going to come into a secure company, you know, past the guards, come in and steal the box, or somebody else is going to come to a lab and use a piece of equipment that probably only our organization needs.
Go figure.
And so I go, and I'm thinking to myself, what's going to happen? Are they going to fire me? And so I just signed for it. And then 3 weeks later, when I was in the unemployment line, no, I did not get fired.
Of course not. 3 weeks later.
But I did go back to my supervisor when we got back from the weekend. I said, you know, this happened and I signed for it. Was I wrong in doing that? And he goes, no, I'm glad you stepped up and took responsibility. And it was really a trivial thing, but everybody else was so afraid and they didn't want to do it because they might get in trouble. And I go, look, this guy's going to have to take the box back to the loading dock, redeliver it, and that costs the company money because one of us isn't willing just to sign for it. And I really thought about, well, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, if somebody does steal it, then we've got a bigger problem as a company.
That's right.
So
it wouldn't be your fault for taking the initiative and not asking permission and just doing it.
Right, and I think that's one of the reasons why I got to be a supervisor and got into leadership at a very young age. When I first became a supervisor, everybody I supervised was younger than me. I was in my early 20s. And then ever since that point, I realized that a lot of these people, they were really focused on their technical abilities and they really enjoyed the technical, and that there was a leadership void or a void in the company of people, engineers who wanted to get into leadership.
Really?
So,
Engineers just wanted to be engineers. They didn't want to lead people. They don't want to take that responsibility.
Right. I think that was part of it, and plus they felt more comfortable dealing with numbers and science than dealing with
that's what engineers
people
like.
issues. Yeah,
and
that's why that's why we got into engineering. But I realized that, you know what, a lot of people do that better than me, and even though I'm shy and not good speaking to people, let me
at that time
let me try and learn all there is to learn about leadership. So I spent all my time studying leadership instead of reading about the latest technology, and I advanced to a pretty high level in the company in spite of having stage fright. And that's why I can share those now as a speaker. I share those leadership secrets, and I use some of those same leadership secrets to overcome stage fright.
So in that scenario you just gave us about the package, very simple package that all these senior executives didn't want to take responsibility and you give them their signature. So is that something to do about, is it, I don't want to be the bad guy, I don't want to be seen as stepping on somebody's toes, or, it's not my job, don't ask me to do it, it's not my job. I mean, because that gets into a lot about your mindset.
Right, I totally agree. People who aren't, I make the analogy, it's like people see the world in black and white.
Yeah.
And really, people who see the world in black and white really struggle because a lot of things are in the gray area.
Yeah, they are.
And from that point on, I tend to play in the gray and look in the gray area and see. And I came up, as I was doing the article and relating other experiences, that I came up with 6 questions that you can kind of ask yourself.
Good.
And one of them is what I'm going to do, is it illegal?
Is it illegal?
Yeah, and if you're going to break a law, you probably don't want to do it. Although there may be a circumstance where if you're rushing somebody to the hospital, and you may want to break the speed law because it's a life and death situation. But
if it's
you should
not
ask
illegal?
yourself, if it's not illegal, then your morals and your values. Is this something that I'm contemplating doing? Is it in line with who I am and what I believe in? And if it is in line, then why not? The next thing you can ask yourself, do I have enough information to make a logical decision? And in that situation with the package, I asked the transportation guy and relied on him, does a supervisor have to sign for it? If he said a supervisor must sign for it, well, since I'm not a supervisor, I probably would have chosen not to. But he said, no, I just need somebody to be accountable that the package was delivered. So I was willing to accept that accountability. And if you're in a different situation, think about, if I make this decision, like you mentioned earlier about a marketing plan and or a marketing strategy, do you have enough information? Or if you only have a tiny slice and your company has 30 other people that have been working on something and they have a lot of information you don't have, then maybe you don't want to do it. But if you know all the facts and data that you need to make a reasonable decision, and if somebody comes back to you after the fact and says, why did you do that? And you explain it and they go, okay, you showed good judgment. And judgment is the big key here.
That's the big key.
Because if you can exercise good judgment, then you become a valuable employee.
So the first thing you said was, is it going to be illegal? So as you see, if it's not illegal, then the other thing I want to say about that, how it relates to, Walt and I come from similar backgrounds. So when I wrote the blog post, I was like, here's some questions that I know Walt's going to chop up, and I wanted him to chop them up because the other question that you ask is, for me, I come from a service standpoint. I'm a servant. I love serving people. I love, that part of me is just, passionate. So are your core values aligned with this decision? So if it's not illegal, and if you know that you're operating within the mission statement of your company, or if you're a small business or an entrepreneur, you have to ask yourself, is this something that is an authentic decision? Is it something that my core values can support? So I think that aligns with, you had 3 of them already. Is it illegal?
Right. And the other one, do you have enough? It was
enough
illegal,
information.
Immoral, which kind of gets to the values aspect. And then the third choice would then be, do I have enough information to make an important decision?
Yes.
And what you mentioned about company mission, company values, that is a piece of information.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. So, and then the other thing about not asking permission, but asking for forgiveness later, what's in it for you? Do you have an ego motive? Is it going to benefit your company, or is it going to benefit you? What do you think about that?
Well, see, in that situation, I wasn't really getting any I mean, I got benefit after the fact because I demonstrated good judgment, but I didn't sit there and go, oh, you know what? If I sign for this, they're going to make me a supervisor, and I get all the headaches that come with being a supervisor. No, but what I did was I said, okay, look, it's wasting money for the company to have this transportation person go 15 minutes back to the loading dock, come back at another time.
Right.
And, that's another half hour of his time. So 45 minutes is going to, or no, he has to go back anyway. So a half hour of his time is going to be wasted.
Right.
Maybe we had people in another part of the organization who needed that box, and they were having people come in on overtime on the weekend, and they might have needed that package. I don't know that. So it could have had even more costs. And again, I wasn't doing it for me.
Yeah.
I thought it was best for the company for that package to be delivered at that
right.
time. And that was a really, in the grand scheme of things, that's a small thing. But when you take this same behavior and apply it in different situations, it could be a big deal for companies.
It could be a big deal because, just like you said, and that was one of the questions that I have people answer as well, is your decision going to make your company money, or is it going to cost your company money? So in your case, you allowed your company not to pay an additional expense because you took care of it.
Yeah, and let's say I did something and somebody said, Walt, you should not have done that.
Yeah.
And they say, well, why did you do it? And I say, I was trying to save the company money, and I acknowledge my mistakes. That's the other one, is if it doesn't work out right,
if it doesn't work out,
be willing to take responsibility. That's kind of goes back to Stephen Covey's first habit. You're free to choose and responsible for your choices. So you can't go back. And when you don't take this attitude, you're basically saying, I don't want to be responsible. Right. I'm just going to follow the rules, and nobody can get me in trouble because I followed the rules. And they say, well, why didn't you use your judgment? I just followed the rules. So
those are the kind of people we don't want to work with.
Exactly. And yet they're out there, and a lot of people think that way. And that's why I tell people it's not that hard to get ahead and be successful. There's some simple, basic things that you can do. They're not hard. It's just that 90% of the people aren't doing them. And if you choose to behave that way,
that's right.
You'd be surprised what you can do.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we have 4. Is it legal? Do you have enough information? Your values? And are you willing to take responsibility? Right.
Okay. And then I have 2 more. One of them, what's the worst possible outcome? And I mentioned that.
What's the worst possible outcome?
Right, because if you don't, if you think you have enough information to make a decision, but if you go the wrong way and it can put your company out of business, you might want to involve somebody at a higher pay grade to help you through that process. But like with the box, it's like the worst thing is they're going to slap my wrist and say, don't do it again. They're not going to fire me because I signed for a box when it made financial sense for the company to do it. They may say, we really prefer that a supervisor do it. Next time it happens, do this. And I'll say, fine. But given the information I had, I used my judgment. And, you could say you did the wrong thing, but you used good judgment based on the information you had. So for me, it's like, what is the worst possible thing that can go wrong? Because if it is that serious, even though you think you have enough information, you may have kind of a financial responsibility to your company to run it up the food chain and check with your supervision and get permission because of the consequences. But if the consequences are relatively trivial and the other thing is, what can you do to recover? That's the 6th question is like, okay, let's say this doesn't go right. What's the plan B? How do we make it correct?
Yeah.
And
so that is where we completely align, Walt. Because the last one that I have is, what is the contingency plan?
Exactly.
That is in complete alignment with, you have to use your judgment, like Walt's saying. You have to use your judgment, because when you use your judgment, and if you already have some sound values, some sound principles that you're working with, how can you go wrong? And you know that, you're not like you're just going out there scatterbrain. You're operating with some principles and some core values.
Right, and see that when some people read this and say, "Oh, it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission," they think it's a license to go steal, rob a liquor store, and if I get caught, it's like, "I'm sorry, please forgive me." No, that's not what this means. It's about using judgment, following the rules that you and I set up, which are similar but a little different. But whatever works for you, you test it against your values. You take responsibility for your choices. You use good judgment. And you develop, and what happens is every time you do this, you increase your confidence in your judgment.
Yes.
And one of the things when I got into leadership, I would look for employees and check their judgment. And employees with good judgment, you can work with, coach, and really develop them. And those are your future leaders. Ones who don't want to exercise judgment and just want to be told what to do. Well, when they ask, well, why am I not advancing in the company? It's pretty simple. You're not adding additional value. Anybody can work in a black and white world and follow orders, or most people can.
Most people can. Not
Right.
anybody.
I'm
glad you hesitated.
Yeah, I was catching myself. But in a corporate environment, if they've got hired, 99% can do the black and white things. It's that plain and the gray area where you can really establish your value. And as an entrepreneur, it's the same thing. It's about taking. It's a form of risk taking.
Yeah, it is.
But you want to take educated risks, and when the risk doesn't work out, you don't want to look for somebody else to bail you out. You made a choice. You have to figure out how to take your next step to correct, and not just throw up my hand and say, "Oh, I made a mistake.
Yeah.
Somebody come, save me."
Yeah.
You have to learn to save yourself.
Like Walt said, this is not a license to just, go off and do silly things and say, "Oh, please forgive me." No. I mean, and I had a show, we're going to take a break in just a minute, but I had a show also that talked about how relationships, how dating is very similar to customer service and very similar to how we operate in business. So this is very much the same thing with forgiveness. You don't just, in a relationship, you're not going to just do something absolutely stupid that your partner is going to say, "Leave me, don't come back, I don't want to ever see you again." I mean, you're going to use your good judgment.
Right.
And these practices can go in both directions, whether you're in business, we're in a personal relationship, and that's what it's all about. When we come back, we're going to talk more about this whole subject and how you can continue to educate yourself and really, really ensure that what you do is what you want to do. So we'll be right back. You're listening to Diana's Spicy Business Talk Radio. Stay with us. Host of Spicy Business Talk Radio. And 89% of customers don't feel that businesses are concerned about their needs. So all of us, you have to own your presence. You have to be efficient at communicating your message and be effective at transmitting what you mean. I am known as a communication strategist, and my firm, Diana Price & Associates, is known for premier customer-focused experiences, unwrapping leadership challenges, business challenges, and accelerating your publicity and your message so you can get more creative results. What we do is help businesses communicate, connect, convey, and capture more market share. That's what we do. We look forward to helping you master your spicy message, master the strategies that you have so customers will understand that you really do care about their needs. Give us a call at 866-631-75 Hi, welcome back. Let's give Walt Grassl a great big studio round of applause. Yay!
Good to be here.
I'm really enjoying this. And, you know, this is not only for all of you to get nuggets, but, you know, we're just having a conversation, lunchtime, no calories. So, you know, it's absolutely really cool to be able to talk to a friend and really be able to share with you, hopefully, things that you're getting out of it as well. So we're gonna move on to another topic. We were talking about how when you continue to do, you know, things like use your judgment, make some decisions, you know, just try it. You get more comfortable with it. So in the past, when you were thinking about, oh, I couldn't do that, I can't do that, I've never been able to do that, why should I even try? And you have that mindset. Art, you wrote an article about just because you couldn't doesn't mean you can't.
Yes, that's in my book. I have these things called Walt's rules. They're the rules I followed that helped me overcome stage fright. And the primary one is your mindset. Just because you couldn't do something before doesn't mean you can't do it now. I like to tell this story. When I was in first grade, we had a homework assignment for drawing, and I think it was something like draw a ball, draw a tree, and draw a cat. And I could draw a ball because that was a circle, and with a little struggle I made it. And it was draw a tree, and I did a little circle and put a little line under it. But I could not put lines on paper that in any way looked like a cat.
Oh.
And I was sitting at our dining room table, you know, you could still smell the spaghetti in the air, and I'm trying to do this and erasing, and there's tears on the paper, and pretty soon it started getting wet as I started to cry. And from that point forward, I labeled myself as somebody that couldn't draw. So whenever in class we had an assignment that involved drawing, I would get all tense, and I told myself I can't do this, and I couldn't, because you know, they say if you say you can't, you can't. You know, whether you say you can or you can't, you're right. And I think it was Henry Ford that's one of the people that said that. And I did the same thing with being mechanical. I went to a technical high school, and they had an entrance exam. And when we got the debriefing on that, they said, what shop do you want to go into? And I said, electronics. And saying, good, because if you don't want to get into the mechanical one, we wouldn't have let you. Because I was really bad with taking like a drawing in 2 dimensions and saying what it would look like in 3, and that spatial things.
Yes.
And I labeled myself as somebody that couldn't do things mechanical.
You couldn't do it.
Same thing with stage fright. Right in class, I would do my homework on a piece of paper, get the math problems right. Teacher goes, Walt, come up and write it on the board. And I went from being one of the smarter students to being one of the dumbest. And I labeled myself as somebody that couldn't speak.
I can't speak. I can't, yeah.
But as I got older, there was this show on TV. It was called Imagination Station. I don't know if you ever saw it. This cartoonist it was for teaching kids how to draw pencil drawings, and he would do space-time. I think his name was Mark Nistler. It was on PBS.
Okay.
And I'm in my late 20s, early 30s, and I see this guy doing it, and I had to take drafting, and I had something, but I said, you know what, I'm going to actually try to draw. So I tried it, and, you know, I'm not Da Vinci, but I can do little sketches. And
you were trying it as a TV person
as he
was
did it.
teaching?
Yeah, I would do it on the videotape, and then I took a little sketchbook, and I started doing these little cartoons and learned about some of the techniques. And you know, I taught myself, and through work, I got experience doing mechanical things, and you know, I started out not having a lot of mechanical aptitude, but it developed over time. And then with the speaking.
It developed over time.
Yeah,
and
I mean,
he's excellent. He's an excellent speaker, as you can see.
Well, thank you. But it was a matter of taking small steps. And one of the things I encourage people to do is do something that is not easy. I think, can you imagine if when we were learning how to walk, the first time we tried to stand up and fell, we go, okay, I can't. We'd all be, you know, there'd be designer knee pads and we wouldn't be wearing shoes, right?
Exactly.
And I think around the time we start riding a bike, we start worrying more about what other people think, right? I don't know about you, but I can, you know, part of me struggling with riding a bike is all the neighbor kids and people are watching me out in front of the house. Watching me struggle. And we don't want people to watch us struggle. We don't want
people to watch us struggle. You're right.
But you have to realize that struggle is not bad. It's part of growth. It's you should be proud and just get up. If you stumble, get up, try it again and again, and
it's a nice learning lesson.
Yeah, you'll get there.
Yeah.
And I applied that to speaking, and this, like I said, when I was in my late 40s even, if you told me I would do this, I'd say, you're nuts. No way. I can't do this. But I was wrong.
You were wrong. And good. And the article you wrote about, if you say you couldn't, I can't do this, but now that doesn't mean you can't, because you are living proof with your speaking. So what are some of the steps you can take to kind of program your mind to say, yeah, I can do this? Well,
one of the things I suggest is do something that's fun. Back, I think it was the 70s, 80s, Bo Jackson, Bo knows, right? He was the cross training. Before that, you were either a runner or
yes,
or you swam. And they said, no, if you want to be a good athlete, you need to run, you need to swim, you need to do multiple sports, and that variety will help you. And like with me in speaking, it was improv, stand-up comedy, Toastmasters help. But I think that if you decide you want to play the guitar, what is something that you wanted to do?
Right.
Maybe you want to learn how to ice skate. Take ice skating lessons. Go out and realize that you start out with zero capability. You put in hours, and they have that 10,000 hour rule about...
That's right.
And I saw that with improv. It wasn't until I hit about 100 hours of improv that I quit trying to guess ahead of what the person was going to say. And it's like I would say my line, and then while you're talking, I'm not really listening to you. I'm thinking, okay, what am I going to say next? When a good improviser just listens, and then the first thing that comes into my mind to move the scene forward. So what you want to do is you want to just try something. And convince yourself with something fun that I can learn a new skill. And then the skill that you need for your job or your career, you've already got the confidence that I can still learn new skills.
There you go.
But I think we put too much pressure
on ourselves
because of the consequences. It's like, look, if I don't develop this skill, I might not get this promotion, but I can't do it. Well, convince yourself, you things you couldn't do, you can do them now. And if you do it in a few things that are fun and there's no consequences, then it becomes easier for the thing that you need to do to help yourself, your career, or your business.
That means you have to ask to do new things and just force yourself to do new things. Just do it. Go for it, especially at work. So we're going to take a quick break. Wow. And I know it's...
Time flies.
Time flies when you're having fun. We're going to come back with Walt Grassl, and we're going to finish up with some fun things that you don't want to miss. This is Diana Price, and you're watching Spicy Business Talk Radio. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Isolde Sanford, and I just concluded my radio interview with Diana Price, and I just wanted to say how great the interview went. It was my first time being on radio, and I was just so nervous, but she made me so comfortable. I'm an entrepreneur, and I provide financial services, and I felt that it would be a great platform for me to be able to go to tell people about what I do and how it can be a benefit to them in their lives. Diana was the perfect person to come to and to sit down with. She provided a lot of questions that was able to get that information out to the audience. In addition to that, it was a very, very professional and comfortable environment. And she's just a wonderful person with a great spirit. So I would recommend entrepreneurs, or even if you're in corporate America, if you have information or services that you would like to get out there to the population, for people that really need to get in contact with you, please contact Diana Price. And you can reach her at DianaPriceAssociates.com. Diana at DianaPriceAssociates.com. And once again, I'm Isolde Sanford, and I am really, really recommending.
Price with my friend Walt Grassl, and we're just having a fantastic blast. Wish you were here with us, but we're having a nice non-fattening lunch. Just talking about all the ingredients for business success, especially when you go out there and you want to try something new and you think, oh, I can't do that, I can't do that. You know, just kind of let your mind open and, you know, take a deep breath. You know, that's the breath is the being of life. So, but I want Walt to talk to you about some of the things that are really important, because Walt has gone through this, and he, like no one else, can talk about how you can own your own dreams. He wrote this article about how you own your own dreams and get the results based on your choices. So Walt, you know, that article that you wrote, what was that, in Article Weekly? Where was that article?
Yeah, in addition to being in several trade publications, it's on articleweekly.com.
Okay.
I have 11 articles there now. If you just search for my last name, Grassl, on articleweekly.com, you can see them all in one place. And the idea of you own your dreams came to me when I was at a retirement luncheon, and all my fellow retirees, because of the fluctuations in the aerospace industry, there was a surge around the time I got in, so there was a large group of retirements, and periodically we'd get together once or twice a year to talk about things. And when people hear all the things I'm doing, they go, man, you are so busy. But for me, there are fun things that I'm doing. And and then when I go to entrepreneur conferences like the one where we met, and you listen to all these entrepreneurs, and they're, you know, working 60 hours a week trying to hustle and make their businesses go, and I'm like the laziest entrepreneur in the world. So what is it? Am I the laziest entrepreneur in the world, or I'm the busiest retiree? And it gave me this idea for an article that you own your dreams, and you'll get results based on the choices and the actions you take. So if you want to do something, don't let other people set your pace. Now, if you're an entrepreneur and you need to work a lot of hours to pay your bills and meet your commitments, then that's a choice you have to make. But you may rethink changing how you work or changing what you're committed to get a balance. And I kind of drew a little mind map of the things that are important to me. And number one was my health, because I worked for 37 years, and I don't want, you know, to the extent that I could prevent dying without enjoying my retirement, I want to avoid that. So I work with a personal trainer 3 to 4 days a week.
Yes, high five! Are you kidding me?
Well, I've had some health issues, and she's helped me get stronger, like my back issues, my knees, and things like that. So the quality of my life is much better, plus my heart rate, my blood pressure, all that is better, and I'm eating better because of that.
Good.
Next is my relationship, because it doesn't do any good to live a life without someone to share it with.
That's right.
And then I committed to doing a radio show. Oh, I'm sorry. The next one is the financial, because I need to manage my retirement money and the amount of money I invest in my business and the amount of money I will make in my business.
Yes.
And then it's the radio show, which is a weekly commitment, and I enjoy doing it. I've met so many great people like you have doing a radio show. It's one of the best investments you can make, even if you don't make money selling commercials or whatever. The access to people and the knowledge you learn, it's like training, and it's really a good investment.
You're right. And
then I mix in acting lessons, speaking, writing books, writing articles, and all these other things. But it's on a priority, and I'll get the results based on the effort. And if things start getting too busy and I want to take a week off, I can adjust my deadlines. There's nobody, except for the radio show, which I want to do on a weekly basis. Occasionally, though, it gets too much of a hassle to book a guest at the last minute because I procrastinate. I am a world-class procrastinator, and I'm still getting a lot more done than most people because I take action, and it's about taking a series of small steps. But if you work hard and smart and do the right things, you'll get good results. If you don't want to do it and you don't want as many results, well, that's fine too. You don't have to be a billionaire to be a success. You just have to be able to live the life you want to lead. And I think a lot of people confuse happiness and success with keeping up with the Joneses. If you want to live in Lakewood, Long Beach, some smaller suburb where it's a nice, safe community, a good standard of living. You don't have to live in Palos Verdes or Malibu to be a success. And don't let other people tell you what success is.
That's right.
Live your dream. You know, it's not about, don't live somebody else's dream. Don't let other people put expectations on you. That's your choice. You make it.
You're not competing with them.
No.
They're not part of you. They're not part of your life. They don't know what you like. You don't
Exactly.
need their approval. You
That's
don't.
right.
You ask them for forgiveness. Oh, I didn't know you wanted me to do that. I'm doing this.
Yeah, I have a quick story on that. In 1989, I decided I was like in my 30s. I was in my early 30s, and I'd been living a life seeking the approval of others. I wanted to make my
here you
parents
go.
happy.
Here
I
we
wanted to
go.
make my bosses happy. And finally, I said, you know what? Screw it. And I developed what I called FU attitude. And I shaved my head, and I wore it, and I had my
Did you
ear
really?
pierced, as it was kind of symbolic that I no longer cared what people think. There weren't people walking around with shaved heads and earrings in the aerospace
Okay,
industry.
I love that. I love that. That is just fabulous. I
And-
don't
and-
care what you think.
Exactly. And again, just like the forgiveness thing,
Yeah.
it's not about doing bad things because you don't care. You have integrity, but you're not letting other people, because you can't please everyone. And it's a very frustrating thing when you depend upon others to give you approval.
Exactly.
If you've got good core values and you live up to them, and you know
Oh
you're
my
doing the
God,
right
you're
thing,
talking
that's
my
happiness.
language. Yes, it is.
So-
And it's all about what you want out of your life. It's about where do you want to go? What kind of legacy are you planning to leave?
Exactly.
You know, and for me, it has to have service. It has to have those core values. It has to be something where I can give and show that this is what I gave. So, you know, when you're going to your dreams, you know, Walt, I just identify with them so much because our backgrounds are so similar, our corporate backgrounds, and you know, we retired from corporate, and now we're both entrepreneurs, small businesses. So, you just really have to focus on what's in it for you, but not being selfish when you do that, but just being authentic to yourself. So,
Yeah. I mean, we're both providing a service. We're sharing information and helping people transform. If they want to take
Precisely.
the actions, we're modeling that behavior.
That's right.
We're giving them tips that they can follow if they choose. But if they don't choose to act, that's not our fault.
That's correct.
We're putting it out there, and it's on them to take action
That's
or
right.
not. And we can't let whether they take action or not impact us. As long as we're communicating it to the best of our ability, then it's on them. We've chosen to take action, and hopefully other people will do that as well.
Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit. We have just a few minutes left. I want to talk about this book that he wrote. He wrote this book, and it's called Stand Up, Speak Up. I think we talked about it. Do I have it the right way? I want to make sure you see his book.
There's only one angle where I actually look good on it, so make sure you get it that way. It's like those little things, you know, where you turn them. It's like Dracula or Walt. You just got to get it right. Otherwise, I look like
Walt,
Dracula.
Stop it. You're so funny. So this is an easy read, you guys. And, I forgot to give you the phone number today. I think you know it. 323-965-1600. 323-965-1600. Did I forget that or what? I am so sorry, but if you want to call in the next few minutes, feel free. I'll make it up too next week, I promise. And I'll make it up because Walt's coming back on the show over the phone lines. But, you just have got to get your hands on this book. And we may give away one. Walt brought us two. So, it's such an easy read, not only for if you have gone through any of the things that we talked about today. And, Walt is such a good role model for things that you think, oh my God, I'll never be able to do that. Listen to his story. His story is phenomenal. So, Walt, you tell us about your book and tell us about the easy read and, what people can expect when they get your book.
Okay, it's pretty much the first chapter explains my story, how I reinvented myself. I call it Walt 2.0. Walt 1.0 had a big defect, a big bug in the software that he couldn't speak in public. So among the many upgrades were to overcome stage fright, and that's enabled me to do many things. And the show CSI with Mark Harmon, where his character Gibbs has Gibbs's rules, that inspired me to call my system Walt's rules, where just because you couldn't doesn't mean you can't. Say yes to opportunities and take small steps. You can't try and just go from being afraid of speaking to being an accomplished speaker. Be comfortable making progress. The idea of cross-training. You can't just study, you have to do the work. You can't just read about being a good speaker. You actually have to get up in front of audiences and speak and learn from that. And each chapter is just a couple of pages. It's a short read. And
it's 60...
It's 60-some pages, and my trainer has read it 3 times. Jessica, she says she gets a lot out of it every time, and it's you don't have to sit down and read the whole book, and it's not like one follows the other. And if you just read one chapter a week and worked on doing that, like another one is investing in yourself.
Oh, I love that part.
And we didn't really talk a lot about that, but when you invest in yourself, that's in your education especially, that's something that can't be taxed or confiscated. If you make yourself smarter and more capable, they can't take that away from you, and that's the best investment you can make. A lot of people see training as an expense, and I can't afford to do that. And my attitude has been, I can't afford not to make myself better, even if it's just going to the library and borrowing books and reading them, because you're investing your time.
Right.
Which makes you better. It doesn't mean necessarily spending thousands of dollars on a coaching program, unless that's appropriate for you. But in the beginning, just read a lot.
Read a lot.
Yeah. And this, my book is a first step. It's an easy read. Yeah. But there are a lot of books out there. Stephen Covey. Yeah. Stephen Hunter, who wrote the book The Servant. You're into servant leadership.
Me.
That's one of my favorite books.
Stephen Hunter. I have all the books on service. I don't have.
It's called The Servant, and it's more told as a story, kind of like The 1 Minute Manager was a story.
Yeah.
It's told in that format. It's a little more. It's about twice the number of words as The 1 Minute Manager, but it's still a fairly easy read about the idea that a leader's job is about serving the people that work for them, not bossing them around. It's not a power trip. It's a position of service. Leadership is service, and we're of like mind on that.
Yeah, it is. That's my passion. It's all about service. So as we come to the end of the hour, let's give Walt a nice big studio round of applause. Yay!
Thank you.
Now he's going to tell you how you can reach him. How can people get in contact with you?
My website is waltgrassl.com. That's GRASSL.com.
GRASSL.com.
And it has links to my radio show, the book, everything there. You can get everything about me from there.
Okay. Awesome. Well, we're going to have Walt back, and we have just had a phenomenal discussion today. It's been awesome, and don't you love this guy? Don't you love, how you can see yourself in his story? I know you can. You have to, because it's something that all of us, it might be not exactly, but it's something that all of us can really identify with. Can I do this? Do I also always have to ask someone if I have to do something? So think about this and maybe go back and re-look at this broadcast, and I think you'll get a lot more out of it. And thank you, Walt, for being with us today. Really appreciate your nuggets, your words of wisdom.
Thanks for having me.
It's just been a phenomenal topic. So thank you, and we'll see you this week. You're listening to Diana's Spicy Business Talk Radio. If you need to reach us, you can email us at diana@dianapriceassociates.com, or you can leave us a post on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Spicy Business Talk. And we'll be glad to not only respond to you, if you have any questions about how to get on the show, we'll be happy to contact you. Have a great week, and keep everything in a spicy, sizzling manner. We'll see you next Tuesday.